There's a secret world just outside the hospital walls where clinicians trade stethoscopes for startups. If you've ever wondered how someone goes from seeing patients to building the future of healthcare, you're in the right place. I'm Kayla, a PA on a mission to figure out what comes next. When I started researching careers in health tech, I found confusing job titles and zero clarity on how clinicians actually made the transition. So I went straight to the source, the people who already did it. Each week, we demystify a specific career path by someone who's already living it, whether it's from the bedside to the boardroom, the startup, or something completely different. Whether you're planning your exit, passively curious, or already working in health tech, this is your insider's guide. Welcome to Corporate Espionage. And today, I'm so excited to welcome Joey Ferry. He is a nurse who was really born to build things. He's a lifelong entrepreneur, and he co-founded Frontier Innovations with a fellow nurse, Taofiki, after watching patients struggle with inadequate seizure precautions at the bedside. He realized that he could just create the solution himself. Their award-winning Safe Seizure pad won the 2020 American Nurses Association Innovation Award and became a multi-million-dollar company, proving that the best healthcare solutions come from people who've really lived the problems. With over 16 years of business and nursing experience, he's navigated FDA approvals, manufacturing overseas, and hospital sales cycles. Joey's mission is simple, that innovation begins at the bedside and nurses belong in the builder's seat. So I'm so excited to have you today, Joey. We have a lot to get into. Really excited to learn more about your journey and your perspective and just the way that you tackle things head on. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I think that's probably one of the best introductions I think we may have ever received. And I say we because you're going to hear me talking we's a lot. Tofiki is
Yeah.
as you mentioned, he's one of my best friends. He's my business partner. We'll get into how all that came about, but no. So I a lot of times I'll talk in we's, and so I appreciate you shouting him out because this is in no way, shape, or form. I'm just representing all the stuff that we've done. I appreciate that. Thank you for that introduction. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So let's get into it. As I kind of alluded to, I know that you have had a windy journey, but a common thread throughout the whole thing has been just this entrepreneurial spirit. So I'd love for you to share more about your upbringing, your childhood, and kind of what that looks like for you, and then how you found yourself in the nursing profession.
Yeah, so when I first started going down this more social route of talking with people, other people, I've been doing this too, and finding similarities amongst our community. I didn't realize how normal my life was. I know that sounds weird, but I used to think, man, I had it tough and this and that, and it wasn't easy. And then you start talking to more people, and they're like, that's me too. So I actually grab it. I used to not really tell my story because it was like, no one wants to hear all that stuff. And then I started realizing and getting messages from people and saying, hey, I also had similar upbringing and similar path to nursing. And so now I'm like, forget it. Like, I'm just going to lay it all on the table. And if that resonates with anyone for one reason or another, like, I'm happy to share. So I appreciate the question because it was not a straightforward path for me. Some people had a parent or a grandparent that was a nurse that was in healthcare, and that inspired them. Some people took care of someone and saw how other nurses took care of someone in their family, and that inspired them. I had none of that necessarily. So for myself, we came from a pretty shaky background. My brothers and I was the youngest of I have two older brothers. And then as I got older, had a mixed family, so now I have younger siblings as well. But really, I grew up as the youngest in our household, and we moved everywhere. I mean, I've lived in 30 different places. Like, and those are the ones I can remember. 30 different places I've lived. We were homeless lived out of a hotel at one point. I lived in a bus at one point. Violence was always a thing in my household. Cycling through different spouses in my household. My mom was a single mom, and so, she's just trying to keep us all together. But then obviously, she's trying to find her own spouse, and so that led us down a path with a bunch of abusive boyfriends and you name it. And so, and again, I don't mean to go too deep too quickly, but
Yeah,
just trying to
we
kind of
invite that here, so rip it off.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I just try, just again to catch folks up because I think it matters down the road. I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of conversation later, and so hopefully some pieces maybe connect down the road. But so yeah, so No one in my family graduated high school. I was the first out of my two older brothers. I was the first to graduate high school. They both had to drop out. Um, Again, because we were moving around a lot. And then my mom passed away when I was 16, so I was a
Mm.
sophomore in high school. Alcoholism. And so you can imagine it's already pretty shaky as it gets. I was already, prior to high school, I was a bad kid, fought all the time. Uh, I was smoking weed and drinking alcohol in the fifth grade, like just weird to even say that out loud. And part of that is because I had older brothers and older friends. And so, uh, she passed away when I was a sophomore. I gave up. I was like, I'm not messing with this silly stuff anymore. Kind of tried to get myself back on track as far as going to school. So I did graduate barely high school. And then when it came to figuring out what to do with my life, one of the things that I had to do after my mom passed away was go live with my brother and his girlfriend at the time. They were only like 18 years old, not even 18, maybe 17, in their house. And so I'm like living on my own, literally on my own, with no parental guidance. I should clarify, my dad's around, but not around, if you
Yeah.
will. He lived like few cities up the road and gave me an ultimatum. You either change schools, change all your friends, change everything, or just go live with your brother. So I was like, fine. So on my own at a very young age, had to figure life out pretty quickly. And then so when it came time to deciding what to do with my life, my brother made it was non-negotiable. You're going to college, even if it's the community college down the street, which it was, free education, Cal Grants, all that FAFSA stuff. And so doing that, I got 2 degrees in 2 years. I was ready to transfer to any major college in the country, but I had decided to go to nursing. I knew what it paid. In one of my science courses, she was a previously retired nurse. She explained what it pays, job security, all these things. So you could do the math and you're like, wait a second. You're essentially it's guaranteed that I get XYZ if I just go down that path.
Right.
So I was like, that versus business school. I've always been an entrepreneur, as you touched on. Even when I was bad, I was selling candy at school, started my own lottery in high school, and I almost got suspended, but I had to give everyone back their money. I thought it was simple. I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, so if I collect $1 from everyone and then I just give away half the pot, I get to keep
Yep.
half the pot. Yeah, I thought it was pretty 50-50. I thought it was pretty simple. But apparently it's gambling. And so the principal didn't like that. I had to give everyone back their money or whatever. But I was always scheming. I was always working. Yeah, I was always working on something, always scheming. And so I actually really thought I was going to go to business school. I really did. But when I can put the two up next to each other at that point in my life, I was like, I'm so tired of running. I'm so tired of insecurities. I'm so tired of just nothing being set in stone. And so that's really where nursing attracted me. And plus, I love people. I love working on things, tinkering. I love science in general. And so it was a good fit, and I fell in love with it. And so that's kind of that's the long road again.
Hmm.
Um, I used to be like, oh man, that's such a wow story. But then I realized there's so many of us that have their own. It might not be those exact things, of course, but we all have our own troubles, our own burdens, our own hurdles we have to get over. And
Yeah.
so whatever yours are or were, we're all very similar in that regard. And so I drew inspiration from some of those things. And so that's why I'm open book, say it how it is. And
Yeah.
yeah, because it worked out for me anyways. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got into nursing. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think, like you said, some people are either like, oh, my story's not unique. You've heard it a million times. There's that extreme. And then there's also the extreme of like, I'm holding this so close to my chest that like I'm not willing to share it. And like it's very sacred and obviously very personal. So, somewhere in the middle, I really appreciate you finding yourself there and like sharing that with us. It's obviously not something that's super easy to share. So, I do not take that lightly. Thank you.
Yeah, of
I'm
course, of
curious,
course.
like, when you had that decision to make, like going to business school, going to nursing school, did it feel like you were giving something up? Like, was there any sort of like grieving of business school, like grieving of going down that path in that moment?
Y- Yes, and that's a really good question actually, because someone can just take that and like, oh yeah, you made the right choice. But in the time, it's like it's impossible to know. And so, and then leading up to that, I think because of just how my brothers and I, how we grew up with very little. Entrepreneurship. I used to go. There was a neighboring city with really nice houses and hills and whatnot, and they were building these mansions essentially at the top of the hill. And I used to go. I used to literally catch the bus and then walk up this huge hill, and I would go into these unbuilt homes. This is when I was still young, high school, and I'd say, man, I'm going to have this one day. Like, there's one day I'm going to have this. And I would just walk through these unbuilt homes and these dual staircases. And in entrepreneurship, what I love so much about it is there is no limitations there's no cap, there's no ceiling. So
Yep.
talk about being, and that was that was who I was. Like, that was ingrained into me. I think because of everything else, that was something where I actually saw a way out. It was, I enjoyed it. It was fun. So I did it all through high school. I mean, like, I was starting a clothing line company in high school. Even when I got to college, even before I made the decision, I started a fitness drink. So like it had always been who I was.
Yeah.
And so then now you're asking yourself, myself, are you really going to give all that up? And that's why it's such a good question, because it was not an easy decision. And it really was based off of, I did make a promise to myself that my brothers sacrificed a lot for me. So I need to
Hmm.
do something that I can, with 100% certainty, repay them back. And so part of that was that. I knew that nursing could do all these things. The business school that I was getting offered to go to, it was further away. It was, and again, it's business. You don't know what you're going to get with business. And so
Yeah.
it took a lot for me to shelf that and be okay with nursing. Thankfully, nursing was so cool and engaging that it kind of allowed me to not feel too bad about it out of the gate. I will say very quickly, I'm starting to start companies while nursing. I'm a nurse and I'm still trying to start companies, so I could never turn it off,
Yeah.
which is okay. I think in real time, I actually had been okay with it more so. I'd convinced myself or justified the decision by telling myself, it doesn't mean you have to stop starting companies. It doesn't mean you have to stop being an entrepreneur. You're just going to do plan A, which is nursing, and then plan B, you work on it on the side. And if something ever happens, cool. So that was really how I justified it. And so, but took a minute to get there.
So you eventually kind of gave yourself permission to be both.
Right. Well, I knew I gave myself permission. Yes. Eventually, I was like, oh, wait, I could just do both. I didn't realize how hard it is to do both when you keep them entirely separate. Oddly, my brain still stayed like separated where I was trying to start businesses outside of healthcare for
Sure.
years into nursing. I just years. I didn't realize, can I start a company within healthcare? Never even thought about it. I mean, I'm developing softwares that have nothing to do with healthcare.
Yeah.
And not until I met Taofiki, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm working on this thing. It's to try to make a new product in healthcare." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
Yeah.
in one hand, I was like, "How could I have missed this?" And then
Mm.
on the other hand, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is now the opportunity is like just my mind was blown." I was like, "Oh gosh, okay, now I've got several years of nursing experience. I kind of know some of the ins and outs. It's a great market to be in for certain things, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." Now the wheels really start spinning. Once you realize you open up a whole new segment. So, anyways, yeah, that was a whole nother eye-opening moment. As he was like, hmm, "What do you think about this?" I was like, "Oh, jeez, thank you
100%.
for bridging that gap." So,
Yeah. So before we get too far into that part of the story, back it up for us a little bit. You go to nursing school, you finish nursing school. What kind of nurse are you? Where are you practicing?
yeah,
What's your setting? Like, how's that? And is it
yeah.
what you thought it would be?
I think I was actually pleasantly surprised at what nursing
Great.
was. It
Yeah.
didn't catch me off guard in a negative way. Thankfully, because I went to a community college, it's very clinical heavy. So you kind of get thrown in the mix right away. Like, first semester, you're already doing clinical rotations.
Oh, awesome.
And there was some sticker shock for sure. But again, it wasn't bad. I was just like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. There's way more like fun stuff to do in nursing. It's way more exciting than I thought it would be. It's like craziness, people throwing things, and like I was like, oh, cool, I'm good with that. So there was way more of that, and so I that did surprise me. But uh, I went the very traditional, I guess, route you could say as far as clinical nursing goes. got hired on to a hospital that I did a rotation in and knew some folks. So thankfully I got hired. And this was right before the huge hiring freeze back in, I think it was '09. It was a freeze. But so I just started working as a med surg nurse. I was on a telemetry floor, stroke telemetry floor, did a residency program there, which was awesome. Really allowed me to kind of get comfortable in my new role and get my feet underneath me. It's a long 6 month, I think, residency program. And then I was out on my own. I did that for 3 or so years, and I was like, let me go to float pool. Float, because again, I kind of like chaos. It's weird. I
Yeah.
like send me wherever. I don't care.
Yep.
I enjoy that actually. So that yeah, I then I was float pool for the majority of my career, and I had told people for a long time, I don't know if I could do any other type of nursing. Like this is cool. You get to work every day. You have no idea where you're gonna go. Um, yeah, and then you learn everyone's name in the whole hospital because you're working on every unit. So I genuinely liked that. I've always been sort of a jack of all trades kind of person anyways.
Yeah.
And so so that really fit my personality type. And yeah, so I did that, told myself I'd never leave. And then someone asked me if I'd consider a hospital supervisor position. And I was like, huh, it's kind of like float pool in the sense that like you're all over the hospital. You still got to know everyone. I feel like I had already kind of decreased those barriers because I already knew everybody. So it seemed a lot less daunting to go into a role like that. It's a lot of problem solving. You're talking with family members and police and it's just you talk to everyone as a hospital supervisor. Most stressful job I've ever done in my entire life. But yeah, it probably the best job I've ever had. And then I did that for, I think, 3 or so years. Again, not to skip ahead, but before Taofiki and I finally decided to go 100% into the business. But
Hmm.
along that float pool journey is when I met Taofiki. So I was still float pool, met him at the bedside, and that's when that journey started. And then him and I continued to explore our professional careers, our clinical careers, I guess you could say, before we really decided to step away from the hospital setting.
Yeah. So in my head, I bring a certain level of energy to like all the clinical settings that I'm in as well. And when someone comes on and reflects that energy, it feels like sparks go off and we're just like in it and we're chatting and like we're going down this rabbit hole of like, oh my God, you've done this. Like sometimes this happens to me with traveling. Sometimes it happens to me with like investing, like different financial stuff. Sometimes it happens to me with cooking and like restaurants and like foods that I love. It's just like if someone brings that energy to the table, we're
Oh
just
yeah.
like off to the races. And that's how I'm imagining this relationship with Tofiki developed. Am I super off target here?
No, 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 you're on target
Yeah.
for sure. It was funny. I was float pool again, go throughout the whole hospital, and there's not a lot of young where I was anyways. There weren't a lot of young male nurses.
Hmm.
So when you see one, you're just kind of like, oh, that's cool. Like this guy, hey man, what's up?
We could be friends. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, huh, someone I can talk to about this or that. And so I walk onto a unit. It's funny, he was floated that day too, and he was upset that he was floated to another unit. And I'm like walking in, like strolling up right at shift change because I don't care. And he's there early doing all this prep work. And I just see him and I was like, give a quick nod. And then I go get report. And then I noticed he was wearing a smartwatch. And that's really what like kind of started everything. The funny part is it was an old Samsung. It was called the Frontier was the watch. So that's where our name came from for our company, Frontier.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was an old smartwatch, and when there was after med pass or assessments or whatever, I was just like, hey, what smartwatch is that? I've been
Yeah.
looking to get one. And then this guy just doesn't stop talking. He's like, oh, let me tell you, this, this. He just goes on like,
Yeah.
and then he's comparing like three different smartwatches, and I was like, holy smokes, this guy is intelligent. Like he's a smart guy. And so then that just led us talking about other technologies, which then led us down this path of being frustrated with healthcare because it's like I have Bluetooth on my watch, I've got NFC I can tap to pay for things, I can turn on my lights. And it's like, why are hospitals so old? Like, why does it feel like
Hmm.
why are we still using fax machines? We might have had a whole hour-long conversation about our shared frustration about fax machines, and it just so really that's what really bonded us was the similar frustrations about healthcare and how everything is just outdated. Now, mind you, this is before I'm thinking about how to change anything. This is just me like, yeah, everything is terrible when you come in here. And whereas he'd already been working on something for like 6 months. And so we chat, we have a good night. I was only there for 8. I think he was there for 8 hours too. Either way, we talk all night. And then in the morning in the lobby, he's like, hey, can I show you something? And I was like, all right. He's like, can we go get coffee? And I was like, okay, like, I guess I'm off. I'm tired, but all right, let's do it. So we go down the street and he pulls out a little Ziploc baggie like this big. And I'm like, what? It has a barcode and it says Safe Seizure on it. And I'm like, what is this? And it was luggage straps, like
Okay.
legit just luggage straps, right? And I was like, okay, what? And he's like, so you know how we use blankets or pillows, or and I was like, yes. He's like, this is just to help it stay on the bed better. And he's like, I'm tired of having to use tape or mesh panties or whatever to keep it on the bed. And that's when my light bulb went off. Like it didn't just turn on, it exploded in my head. Like the scene from Monsters Inc. when the kids laugh and the whole city goes like everything blows up. Because I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy, he's got it. He knows it. He might not have it's not the exact solution. I wasn't like the solution, but the fact that he's identified a problem that is so simple and he's putting his nurse spin on it. He's like, what can make this better and easier for nurses? And how can we? I was like, holy crap. Like, so I at the time sat on a bunch of different committees. One of them was like a value analysis type committee where we look at new products. And so I was kind of brutally honest and I was like, look, man, here's why I don't think it's going to work. Like, here's all the reasons why this particular iteration is not going to work. And I was like, if you want, we could talk further. I think maybe I can help. And I think we had one other meeting and I was just helping. And then I
Yeah.
finally was like, dude, can I be a part of this? Like, I think, and he was like, yeah, I mean, sure. So he let me on and then we just kind of hashed it out from there, essentially redesigned the product within a day. And that's how we got to Safe Seizure. Almost what you see today is like that first day after like
Wow.
figuring it out was like, we got to redo the whole thing. And if he hadn't already identified the problem, already been trying to solve it, even if he just pulled me aside that morning and said, man, isn't it frustrating to use blankets and tape on the bed rail? I'd be like, yeah, it's frustrating. And I probably would have just moved on. The fact that he had taken all these steps to actually like build something and put a barcode on it. And he was asking me really like, how do I pitch this to the hospital? That's what he was asking me. And I was like, I think we need to back up a little bit. And then I think we can take it forward. So yeah, that's kind of how all that happened. My God, I don't know. I'd probably still be trying to start fitness drinks if it wasn't for that guy.
Hey, Element did it. And they put their recipe out and they're like, we're just packaging convenience.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So, something that I heard you say was that most people as human beings we're happy to talk about the problems and like we're happy to commiserate about all the problems that we see, but a light bulb moment for you was when you saw someone not only complaining about the problems but also like working towards building the solution.
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
It's hard, and it's, like, that's hard to come by. I think even on a personal level, like, when we commiserate about whatever's going on in our lives and, like, you just see people who are stuck in this pattern and, like, cycle of, like, "Oh, my friend is treating me like crap, but I love my friend. I'm gonna keep him in my life." Like, no, like, cut him out, move forward, do all these things, and it's rare, especially in the world of healthcare where things feel so like systematically stacked against us. I mean, healthcare, as you said, right? Like we can tap our watch to pay for a cup of coffee across the world, but there are so many things that are like so slow moving, so bureaucratic, takes years for medications to even go to trials, takes years for new innovations to actually be built in. Like, do we have the budget for it? Blah, 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 blah. So regulated, so slow. And I think for some of us, it's not even a thought because we just accept those beliefs because they're our realities. Like we're working in it, we're living in it. We don't really see a whole lot getting done. So like, why would I be the one who could change it? So I love the fact that like you saw that in him and the fireworks went off and you're just like, let's go for this.
Yeah, it was a moment for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And
So
I was just
Go
gonna
for it.
touch on the fact that I think it's still okay. Like, I'm not saying that everyone should be able to identify problems and everyone should be able to take the next steps. Like, that's really hard for a lot of people, especially
Oh yeah.
I ignorance is like one of the best things you can possibly have sometimes. I didn't know how difficult this would be. So when I'm like, yeah, let's change it. It wasn't because I knew how difficult it was and I'm like, it's gonna be, I know how to solve it all. No, I was just like blindly like kicking a door down and hoping that whatever's on the other side is better than what's on this side, and then blindly kicking down the next door. So I understand why people are like, this is I'm okay right now. I don't want to get off my 12-hour shift. I'm tired. I don't want to go work on anything. I totally get it. So I just wanted to say that it's perfectly normal to just be like, I'm good, man. Someone else will fix that problem.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it sounds like you said, you didn't go into the mindset of like, this is going to be torturous and really, really hard. But you've also said, like, from your nursing experience and from your life experience, like, you're pretty comfortable in chaos and like, you know that your stress tolerance is really high. And that's something that makes you maybe uniquely suited to taking this on head first.
I don't know if I've ever thought about that either, to be honest. Is obviously we all have different backgrounds. We all have different temperaments from the time we're born, but also environmental impacts and make us who we are today. I have always called myself someone who is comfortable in these environments, but I never, this is like a therapy session now. I never really like connected it to things that I had gone through
Mm,
personally. I just assumed like this is just who I am. I'm perfectly fine being uncomfortable. Like I doesn't bother me at all. I don't need answers to everything. I will figure very confident that I'll figure it out. Now that's certainly gotten me in trouble in different elements of my life, but also like when it comes to this stuff, it gives you the level of confidence to feel like, hey, how bad can it be? Like, I'll be all right. I'll be fine. Worst
yeah.
case is I come back to this other scenario, but so maybe that does, I don't know, never thought about it like that. So I'll have to ask my therapist about that one and dig a little deeper.
Yeah, chew on it for a little bit. I mean, that's certainly something that I've identified in like some of the really high achieving folks that I've met over time. I mean, I'm the type of person who I just like go in. I met someone one time at a coffee bar. It was the first time I had ever met them. And they asked me, what sets your soul on fire? And I was like, this is my person. Like, these are my people. So that kind of signals like what type of person I am and like how I communicate and stuff. But I think getting to that level with people quickly and then, like, learning how they go about their lives is something where I really have seen that people who have early stressful experiences usually have the mindset of, like, "I might as well go for this because if I fail, I know that it's never gonna be as bad as what I've already been through,"
Right. Right. Hmm. That
you
could
know?
that might be something to that. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Chew on it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So, of course, most businesses, most entrepreneurs, you fail a lot. And in a previous episode, I had kind of referred to the concept of like failing forward, where you're
Uh-huh.
not letting the failure let you kind of give up and like get you down. You're just like iterating, iterating, iterating. And if that doesn't work, great, move on to the next thing. But in healthcare, there's a unique risk where failing can actually mean like you're harming your patient. Did you ever face a scenario like that or think of it that way? And if so, how did you kind of create the space to fail without the potential really poor outcomes?
I think this kind of ties into like how why it's so beneficial for nurses to really engage with product development with whether you want to start a company or not, that's beside the point. The idea is that nurses, if you're engaged in the early stages, even just our general nursing experience alone, whether you're a student nurse or you've been a nurse for 30 years, you have a different lens that you're wearing when engaging with whatever these solutions are. And it's extremely valuable to have that up front because you mitigate a lot of the wasted time, a lot of the risk, honestly, because you know right out of the gate that's not going to work. Like that's just not going to
Totally.
work. Like that puts the patient at risk. There was a product pitched at the health hackathon, right? And it seemed like a good idea at surface level. It was like, and if you're not clinical, you're like, that's a great idea. But one of the byproducts of how this product actually functioned really was a risk for
Mm.
patients, but no one in the room got it at the time. And I was like, how is this like, how is this getting this much like positive feedback? There's a huge glaring problem with this, in my opinion, anyways, that whatever. It was a hackathon, so it is what it is, but like they did very well within the hackathon, and I was like, there's a huge risk to that. And I'm really surprised more nurses didn't like catch on to that, but it's my experience at the bedside. It
Yeah.
is that I don't need it to go through some case study. I don't need to go through clinical trials to know, like, no, there's a huge risk here, whether it's that product or it's any other product. So for ours, we were our own, sort of sounding board, our own, we tried to pick it apart. What about this? What about that? What about entraption? What about this? We just went within ourselves, and we had two of us, so that was great because he has his own experience, I have mine, and then the two of them together is its own experience altogether. And then once we felt comfortable with something, we started engaging. My wife's a nurse. A bunch of our friends are nurses, so it's like, hey, what about in your department? Would this work? What about that? And so we really used our community, our network of nurses, to really get over the big humps of, is this going to work or not? Yes, there was still some fine tuning later, the things that we might not have ever thought of within our scope, but that was the big one. And this is why it's important. Again, I don't care if you want to start a product or you want to invent something, but you should be telling whoever it is that's trying to do it why it's not going to work for their own
Yeah.
sake, for the patient's sake.
Yep.
Saves everyone time and ideally saves any harm from being to the patient.
Right. There's certainly so many products that get rolled out that you can just tell don't have any clinical input, or at least not enough, right?
Yeah,
Maybe you
right.
need a specific experience for that product to really be in its best form. So we've talked, sort of alluded to what the Safe Seizure pads are. I'm gonna put a picture of this up so
Okay.
anyone watching the podcast can actually visualize it. But for anyone listening, can you talk us through the problem, what it is, what it does, why it works?
Yeah, you've probably got listeners like, can you just tell us what this thing
Right.
is? It's
You said
confusing.
underwear, you said blankets, you
I
said
know. Okay.
like what?
Right. Um, so anyone that's worked at the bedside, whether it be not outpatient, but maybe like long-term care, or in the acute care specifically, I'm the acute care nurse. So, and you've had a patient on seizure precautions. We all know the song and dance about having to find seizure pads, where you look in the closet that they're supposed to be. They're either not there, or if they are there, it's missing a piece of it, or it doesn't fit the bed that you have. And if it's not there, you're like, all right, now you're checking down the hallways, you're asking the charge nurse, you're calling down the central supply. We need seizure pads. Who's got a set somewhere? And so it's a really complicated, strung out process. And we don't have time for that. Like we just have to move on. So
Yeah.
nurses, we're notorious for workarounds. Or that's good and bad thing, but we're known for being able to make do with what we have. We're like the MacGyvers, as they call us, right? That's our nickname. And so with seizure precautions, we end up at the linen cart and we grab a bunch of blankets, we roll them up into a roll, and then we position them over the bed rails and tape them to the bed rail. The reason why we're doing this is because when a doctor writes an order for seizure precautions, that's an expectation of us, is to pad the bed rails. A bunch of other things as well that are in that order set, but padding the bed rails is where all this comes from. And if you don't have what you need to do that, you just figure it out. And so blankets or pillows or whatever, we stuff them in the side, and in case something happens with their patient, in case they start
Hmm.
seizing, they're not going to hit their head or their arm on the hard plastic bed rails. So that's why we do it. How we do it, that's where we get into the blankets, because there's usually not enough or they don't fit. So the existing products on the market, we were like, why don't these work? It wasn't that we didn't have them and it was out of pure scarcity that we were coming up with the solution. We had those other pads, we had those other products on the market. And so it was odd that you got products somewhere on the unit, you just can't find them. You're in central supplies, they don't have them. So we realize it's not necessarily of if we have them or not, it's that they don't fit our workflow.
Yeah, they're just
See,
like inadequate.
exactly. But the linen cart stays in the same place every day. It's in the same exact place. It's always got blankets, you hope. It's always got blankets, and you got a roll of tape on your hip. Cool. I'm not going to even waste time. Boom,
Yep.
boom, boom. Patients on seizure precautions, chart it, done. And so Taofiki, again, when he first identified this problem, he was at a rural hospital in the middle of California, Central California in Fresno, and community hospital. They didn't have any resources, no funding, no money, no nothing. Very different patient population from a demographic wise. He thought the reason why we're using blankets is because we don't have money to pay for the normal ones. Okay,
Mm.
cool. Makes sense, right? But then he moves back here to the Bay Area, gets hired on where I was as well. Very different neighborhood, very affluent patient mix, right? And the hospital has every resource you can essentially ask for. Well, same thing. Why are we using blankets? He went to a nurse like, "Oh yeah, where's your seizure pads? Finally, I get to use seizure pads." I'm like, "No, no, we just use blankets." He's like, "Wait a second, something doesn't add up here." And so that's when he realized it's not a financial issue, it's a logistics problem. And those big, bulky ones, the reusable ones, they don't work. And so that's how we essentially started from scratch, where we knew it had to be single use, universal fit, and it had to be small and compact so it's easy to store on the unit. And when you combine those three things, it's done. You just set it and forget it. Universal fit, doesn't matter what bed you have. Doesn't matter if it's a Hillrom or a Stryker or even a gurney. Doesn't matter. You put them on, they fit. Making them single use, that allows it to stay with the patient no matter where they go. So if I
Mm.
go to transfer to a nurse in ICU, I'm not going back to my unit with these big pads because they say Med Surge 5 on it, and now ICU has to figure out where their sets are. Stays with them no matter where they go. They go to CT, cool, put them on the gurney. The patient is never without protection now.
Hmm.
And then they can even go with them beyond to extended care facilities, skilled nursing, long-term rehab. We made them so that they're compact, and the way that we did that is they inflate, so they self-inflate. So they start super small, they inflate to your full-size bed rail, and then you just roll them back up. They go back in the same small bag, so it's really easy to take with you when you leave, put with your other belongings. And so that's when it all clicked. And I was like, oh yeah, this is finally a new way of doing this thing instead of chasing linen, chasing the reusables. That really allowed us to kind of lock in on what Safe Seizure is and how it fits what everybody needs, not just
Hmm.
the financial line, not just what the nurse needs or what the patient. Honestly, everyone. It has something for everyone, and that's kind of how we ended up there. And that's what Safe Seizure is: self-inflating, universal fit, single patient use seizure pad, way easier, set it and forget it kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen the product pictures. It's like camping gear.
That's it. So
It's
you
amazing.
you nailed one of our inspirations from a materials standpoint.
Yeah,
Uh, yep, that's it. And the funny part is like people are like, then how'd you get a patent? It's like you got to understand, utility patents. It's all in the utility of what you're providing.
right.
So instead of being so it is for anyone listening that hasn't seen the photo yet or doesn't quite understand it. If you've ever seen like a thermarest mattress that rolls up and then you twist the valve and it inflates, it's the same exact thing. We just inverted it so it goes vertical, and we had straps sewn onto it, and that now puts you in a whole different ball game. And now you can get a patent on it, and we have a patent. We have multiple patents on the product because it has a different utility. We don't lay on it in a forest. It
Right.
protects you from bed rails in a hospital setting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it though. Same material, very durable, cleanable, wipeable,
right.
all the things
Packable.
that you want, packable, all those things that you want. We just happen to make two of them, put them in one bag, and have a set of seizure pads.
And does the product let you deflate it again and then reinflate it with the
Hmm.
patient, like when they were to transfer
Yep.
or if
If you
they were
want
to
it,
transfer?
yeah, if you want it out of your way or they're going to go home or something, it's just like those other mattresses. You just undo the valve, you
Yep.
roll it up, and as you're rolling, you're pushing the air out. That valve, once you close it, it's not going to reopen until you reopen the valve, and then it'll automatically pull air in again. And so there's no pumps, nothing like that. It's all
Hmm.
done. Uh, it's it's manual but automatic at the same time. It's
Hmm.
automatic because the foam, when it's compressed, it's always trying to expand. And so when there's a valve, it can't, so it stays closed. As soon as you open that valve, the foam is like, yes, expand. And when it does, it pulls all that air in with it. Super simple, very easy, no crazy technologies, no pumps, nothing like that. So
It is so simple, and anyone who's ever used one of those pads for camping, for sleeping on, knows how nice it is to just like, all right, I'm going to open my valve, walk away for 5 minutes, and the work is going to be done for me.
Yep.
It's incredible. Okay, so obviously that feels like a light bulb product. Like, why wouldn't anyone want to get access to this for their patients, for themselves, for their nurses? But I am quite sure that you faced a lot of difficulty along the way of number one, the product development, number two, starting to get it patented and approved, and then actually rolling it out in the hospital. What were some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate in that the hospital that we worked at, again, we were doing this secretly, like under the table at our houses.
Sure.
We didn't want anyone to know, weren't telling anyone because we were didn't know what it meant. I pulled my whole HR report. I went to HR and I said, "Give me my entire folder, my file, and show me any document I've ever signed." And there were no IP documents. Nowadays, almost every hospital, especially like a teaching hospital, has very specific contracts that state if you come up with an idea here, it's ours, you don't own it.
Yep.
So we didn't have anything like that. So we said, okay, cool. That gave us a sense of comfort when it came to actually presenting it back to our hospital. And we did that because that value analysis committee I told you I worked on, it got brought up about linen cost and how expensive linen cost is. And someone in the group said, and obviously I already know all this, but they're like, we spend a lot of money on linen for seizure precautions. And I was like, oh, they're on to us. So I'm literally texting Taofiki under the table. I'm like, dude, they're talking about how much linen costs and how we use it for seizure precautions. And they're assigning people to go out and find new seizure pads. I was
They're
like,
lobbing this to you.
oh my God. I was like, we have to tell them. We have to tell
Yeah.
them. So thankfully, I knew the head of purchasing because I used to run the annual car show at our hospital. I was like the one in charge of the annual car show, and he would bring his cool old car. And so we bonded that way. That's how we got to know each other. And I still didn't, at the time, I didn't know that he's the guy. I just knew he's in purchasing. Maybe we should ask him. And so I said, can Tofik and I sit down with you? I have a question. And then we show him. He's like, what is that? Where did you get that? And we were like, we made it. He's like, what? Because at this point, we had full prototype, like full manufacturer spec prototype. Um, so we weren't just showing up with nothing.
Right.
It was kind of like when Tofiki, it was that moment where we weren't just complaining. It's like, we have a solution. And he's like, okay. So we asked him, we said, who do we go to for this? And he was like, me. Like, I'm the one that we were like, no way. So, anyways, um, we had to do a lot of extra work with legal with our hospital. We finally spilled the beans and they were like, all right, cool. We like what you guys have. Let's do it the right way. So we got legal involved. Him and I had to sign all these contracts about dual relationship with the hospital. We were
Sure.
vendors, but we were
Yeah.
also employees. It took us literally almost a full year to get through
Hmm.
all the red tape just to get this one hospital. And in that, we did trialing, anonymous trialing. They didn't know that Tofiki and Joey created the product. We didn't want skewed feedback. We wanted
Yep.
true, like, what do the nurses think? What do people think? And I mean, it scored off the charts in every department we trialed it in. And not only that is we were tracking linen on the 3 departments that we did trials on. All of them plummeted because they weren't using it for seizure pads anymore.
Yep.
And then so you track that with the huge, like the very positive feedback it was receiving. They were like, all right, we're going to move forward with this. And we're like, oh my gosh, did we just get our first customer? Like, what the heck? And then ordered our first little mini pallet of product to just supply them. And then the rest was history. Sorry, I didn't answer the other part of your question, which was like, what are the difficulties? And as much as that was a very unique part of this journey because of our role there, we still had to answer all the serious questions that still to this day we have to answer. Every hospital we talk to has the same general concerns. Am I really saving money on this? Is it really doing what it says it's going to do? And for us specifically, the rubs almost always are people are so used to doing things a certain way. And in this particular product space, it happens to be reusable, right? Reusable is that's like
Mind
music.
blowing in
It,
healthcare.
right. It's music to any purchaser's ears because reusable, it's like, oh, low cost, but we get the most value out of it, right? So that's a very hard thing to break through. And for us as clinical, we're like, we get it financially. Yes, if I were in your shoes, I would say reusable makes the most sense. What we found though is that you're picking a reusable, it's not solving your problem, so then you end up stacking linen costs on top of the reusable. So your overall cost is actually not cheaper than what the solution we're providing you. Yes, it's
Hmm.
single use and it seems more expensive on paper, like straight across, but if you add up all of the elements, it's actually cheaper, a lot cheaper than if you just and it's a one-stop shop. It's one SKU. You like, again, set it and forget it. You're not having to worry about this problem for the next however many years like you would if you bought reusable. They're dealing with it every year. They're buying reusable pads every year. They're re-engaging the same conversation. Like you said, right? Not everyone does a great job of stepping out of that, but banging your head on a wall, it's like, okay, so there's plenty of people still to this day, they want to keep banging their head on their wall. We'll talk to you in a year because they always come back. It's like,
Yeah,
you didn't solve the problem yet. Yeah, because we try to explain that this is kind of how you solve it. At least that's one way we've solved it. That's the biggest concern is cost as it relates to a single use product versus the idea that reusable is cheaper.
makes sense. Just because
Yeah.
other solutions have not been actually better or cheaper.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Did you find that you and Tofiki were looked at or treated any differently with your nursing background when you brought this product to other hospitals? Was there more credibility, less credibility? Like, what kind of pushback did you get?
Yeah, so that's funny because again, we didn't know, like no one was telling us, hey, here's how you should present your product. We were just figuring it all out in real time. And there was a point in time. So him and I, we would get off our shift, we'd go downstairs. I'd have boxes in my trunk. I'd drive around to the loading dock, and then I would get out and have the guy sign for it. So we were the delivery guys, we were the marketing team, um, we were everything. So when it came
Yeah.
to trialing at other hospitals or in servicing other hospitals, we are the vendor reps that show up because it's just him and I. So we would go do these like long stints, like 3, 4 days of just never ending what felt like in services for hospitals because you got to be there for every shift. Can't skip night shift. So they want you there at 5 in the morning and then they want you there at like 11 at night. And so it's very like anyone that does this for a living, it's not easy. So be nice the next time some rep shows up at your hospital because it's grueling. But in that process, we had to we're like doing A/B testing. Like one day we would show up and not say anything. We are just your rep. That's it. We're just, look, I'm Safe Seizure and I'm going to tell you how to use this product and we're going to trial it, blah, blah. That's it. And you nurses we are what we are, but we can be mean. I don't know if it's the same in the PA world, but we can be mean and we challenge people. We're like, that's never going to work because of this and that. And so that's like we were getting it left and right. Like this is never going to work. You don't know what you're talking about. Are you clinical? And this is, and it's like, why are you being so mean to me? Like I'm just trying to. And so anyways, you get that response. And then eventually we learned as soon as you say I'm a nurse, as soon as you say that, all their guards come down. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay, you get it then. You're a nurse? And then that made conversation so much easier. You don't have like an ICU nurse telling you like you don't know what you're talking about. It's like,
Yep.
I do. I worked ICU and here, oh, you did. Oh, okay. And then they start listening.
Yep.
Furthermore, we took it even a step further. Again, then we played the fence. Do we tell them like we invented this or do we just keep that a secret too?
Sure.
Again, our concern was not, it was more about we wanted true whole feedback. Like we didn't want tainted feedback because someone got excited that they met the owner or the creator of it. And oh, it's 5 stars. We just wanted people to just give unbiased feedback. And so that is why we were reserved when it came to telling people that. But then also we learned like people are just like, oh my gosh, you created this. Completely changed the dynamic when we walk into a room. And so now we're just open. We're like, look, we're nurses. We invented the product and here's how it can benefit you. And you see, they're like, oh, yes. Oh, I wish I would have thought about this. Oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you get all that. But it took us a while to figure that out instead of holding that back. So it plays a huge role when those conversations come up. And even now in the back office, I guess you could say, when you're having these actual conversations about hospitals bringing it on, when they know that it's nurses that created it, I think it does. It matters. They're like,
You think? Yeah.
I do think so. I think we don't get it. Thankfully, our product isn't super expensive. You're not talking millions of dollars with these hospitals. If you were, they would probably challenge us like, you're not a financial person, you're not a business person, you know. But because it's very clinical, it's a safety product. I think it carries a lot of weight when we step in and we're like, look, as nurses, here's why we designed it that way. So if they have an issue with it being single use, it's like, well, as a nurse, here's all the value to that. Here's how you can position it. Here's how it makes your nurses' lives better. Here's how it makes the patient more safe. And you're not just saying that. You're like, oh yeah, and there's a couple letters there that say that I kind of know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Interesting. I am of the belief that when a product rolls out, if you have non-clinical people representing the product, it's a recipe for disaster, just like you said. So, like, I've been through 4 EMR transitions in my time as a PA, which have been like super brutal at times. And the underlying like feeling that I've had in all of these is like the person who's trying to teach these things to me doesn't even know my workflow. I can't ask them meaningful questions because they don't know what I'm talking about. And I would just imagine, and unfortunately, I've never been able to experience it, but something that I feel like is very valuable and I'm sort of developing this like kind of passion for is that like not only the development, but also the deployment of these products, whether it's a low tech hardware product or a high tech SaaS product, like needs to have a clinician voice when you're rolling them out, when you're deploying them to other clinicians, because there is that barrier of just like that wall that comes down as soon as you say like, no, I know what you're talking about. Even if I'm not in your specialty, I can speak your language. Like we are, on the same team here. I'm going to show you how to make it work for you. So I think that that's a huge way in which like we see that in a very similar lens. I was more curious in a previous conversation with Caleb Williams, who you mentioned that you knew. He said that a lot of the hardship for him was that people were like, well, you're not a business person. Well, like, what kind of experience do you bring? Well, what is your XYZ? And he's like, I don't know. And of course, learning and like failing forward, as I mentioned before, are a big part of that. But it sounds like with this specific use case, that was a huge positive attribute to your and Tofiki's case when you're presenting this product.
Yeah. And what I'd say to someone like Caleb, because I know Caleb and great guy, or anyone else who is a nurse trying to think about going into entrepreneurship or even the business world. If you think about it, is it easier to start out a business person or understand sales and then try to learn the medical language and try to meet them where they're at on the clinical side? Or who has the bigger advantage? Maybe I should have worded it that way. Or the person that started clinical has significant clinical experience and then learns the sales side of things. In my opinion, it's going to be a lot. Someone has to go to nursing school and then spend years on the floor or PA school or, like, sure, they can learn the language, but do you deeply, truly understand? Can you truly empathize with the person you're selling to or you're trying to, engage with? Not so much. But business and sales, it's everywhere we look. Whether you're selling a medical device or you have a lemonade stand, there's so much overlap in that regard that you are way better suited. So someone like Caleb, for example, is way better suited to come in with clinical experience. And yeah, maybe he or she or whoever it is doesn't have the answer today, but what's to stop Caleb from just learning it? Cool, got it. I understand now. I can say that. Someone can't do that with nursing or any medical experience, right? They can't just go into a patient room and feel what it feels like, to have someone desaturating. You can't teach that. So, but you certainly can teach sales, business, marketing, all of that because we engage
Yep.
with it everywhere else. So I just find
Yep.
I think someone's better suited to come from a clinical background and then learn the sales business side of things than the other way around. So I think him and all of us who are listening, you're in a much better position than if we were listening to a business podcast and someone said, hey, how do we get into healthcare and how can we learn to speak their language?
Yeah.
So,
Completely and totally agreed with you. Very underrated perspective as well, And like you said before, right? Some people just they're not going to do it. Like they need to stay clinical. They need to just like do their thing. And we are so lucky to have those people who like aren't feeling jittery and like feeling like, all right, what else? What else? But for those of us who do feel that way, know that you're in the right spot.
Yeah. And I agree 100% on that. And the other part of that, Tovik and I worked, I think we were doing this for 6 years before we decided to take the leap. It wasn't necessarily a leap, it was very strategic, in fact. So I don't think it has to either be one or the other either. It's like
Hmm.
you can kind of work both, specifically with nursing. You can work 3 days a week, have 4 days off. You do whatever you
Totally.
want. You could be a professional photographer if you want. You have the time. That's the beauty of it. So if you want to start your own company, it's there. And so, and then you can learn along the way. You could be doing them in parallel. Another huge benefit, in my opinion, from where we come from. You're not working 40, 40 to 50 hours a week at a 9 to 5
Yep.
and trying to start a company. You're like, oh, I got a flexible schedule. I work every other weekend, which then allows me to do this. And so I think there's a ton of other reasons why we're really well suited for this.
Completely agreed. A huge, huge, huge benefit to nursing. And I mean, I work urgent care, so I'm in the same position is the 12-hour shift and like the flexibility off the clock. There's so much time to pursue other interests like filming this podcast on a Monday.
Exactly, exactly.
So let's zoom in a little bit more. You alluded to working on Safe Seizure for 6 years while you were still working clinically. Give us a little bit of insight into those 6 years of wearing more hats than you already were as a nurse, and then when that inflection point happened.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, and again, we've already touched on why it's okay to not pursue something like this because it's almost insane when you think about it. I would compare it mostly, and Tovik and I both oftentimes we compare it to, it's like nursing school. Or I'm sure it was similar with PA school. It's like you're trying to accomplish something. We only have so many hours in a day. And specifically for me in nursing school, it was a lot of stuff had to go. Like I can't play video games. I just can't. It had to
Mm,
go. And so, and for everyone, it's different. Something's different. How those people go through nursing school with full families, that I'll never understand. However, whatever it took to go through that, if you can still remember what it felt like and what it took, what sacrifices you made, it's very similar if you're going to try to pursue a company or a product. Even though you have 4 days off, right? You're still filling your 4 days with something. So
yep.
one, you have to be extremely passionate about it. Otherwise, you're just gonna hate your life. You're not gonna want to do it. Um, but also like you have to be very organized too. There were again, like I said, we get off shift. I still have to go to work. Like, no one wants to do that. Most people don't want to do that. You got to be kind of crazy. So you have to be okay with that and what sacrifices are going to come with it, and find enjoyment in it because it's not easy. So within that 6 years or whatever it was, very little sleep. Thankfully, I didn't. I actually, when I met Tofiki, I think I'm not mistaken, like 2 months later, my first son was born. That's when it again it starts to get harder. You start filling in gaps of your time, and it's like, oh my gosh. In my opinion, well, at least for me, I just had to get more organized. I had to be more structured. Hey, at this time,
Yeah.
I can't do this. This has to go. I took the TV out of my room in my bedroom. We used to watch TV at night. Like I don't care about sports. I don't care about this. I don't care about TV shows. It really lightened my load from what I felt like I needed personally. It lightened that, and I filled it with some would say work, but again, that fulfilled me personally anyways. So instead of watching some Game of Thrones series, like I'm researching, the best tax structure to file as, it's like weird stuff like that,
Yep.
or I'm drawing up new logos or coming up with new products or how come anyways. But I think that's just part of it. And so yeah, 6 years was rough. I actually was trying to get Tofiki to pull the trigger a heck of a lot sooner. I
Mm,
was like, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was like, look, man, like we can scale this a lot quicker if we're not giving someone else 36 hours of our time every week or 40 or whatever it is. Imagine if we just took that same amount of time and put it into this, we could scale a lot quicker. At the time when I was like really gung ho, it would have been a significant setback. more of a leap of faith than what we later did. But I was, again, I'm comfortable in those situations. I'm like, we'll figure it out. I think we'll be
Yep.
okay. I don't have all
Yep.
the answers, but I'm pretty sure we'll figure it out. This is why you also want a good business partner and someone that's sees the world differently than you. He was like, he needed it extremely structured. Nope, it's got to be like one for one. And I was like, all right, fine. So that's kind of where we landed on is when we can get the company to support us and our families. I held the insurance, he held the insurance for his family. At this point, he's got a kid. I've got two kids. And so, in order for us to actually do this, how can we make it a one-to-one? So we started researching like, all right, how do you got to start a payroll company. Okay, in that, you build out healthcare insurance. All right, we want a healthcare insurance. We're like, hey, this is what our current provider provides. This is like our healthcare plan. Match that. What does that cost? Okay, can we afford that? Okay, all right. You've got that. What salary do I need? What do we currently make versus what do
Yep.
we need? And can we match that? So you start to do all that, and for us, it was never a leap of faith. It was a very calculated on paper, making it so it was more like a lateral step that then allowed us to go into this full time. And not everyone has the same luxuries, don't get me wrong. Like our business has been cash flow positive since that very first order came in.
Right.
So not everyone has that luxury. Some people have super small margins. So we get that. I get that. So that's not to say that everyone can do the same path. What I would just say is like, don't be afraid to keep your two jobs. If you can sustain it, if you're happy, it's not a short game. We see all the time on TikTok or IG, and it's people like, quit your nursing job, go get a side hustle, do consulting, do, and
Oh
it's
my
like,
goodness. Yeah.
no, don't do any of that. Like, I mean, no offense to any of those people. I'm sure some of them have good justifications for it, or maybe have a plan written out. But Taofik and I are the first people to say, do not quit your day job. You can get fully benefited working part time. You work 24 hours a week and be benefited. Don't give that up. Leverage
Yep.
it instead, and uh, and then that'll help you. It'll make you a healthier business owner down the road because you're not scrambling to pay your rent and your mortgage and your health insurance while you're trying to get this business off the ground. It kind of allows you to, all right, all that's taken care of, cool, because I have to go to work 2 days a week, 2 12s a week. All right, cool. But then 5 days a week, I can focus on being scrappy with this company and getting it started. So uh it's rough. 6 years. Um the time was right now I look back. If we'd have done it sooner, yeah, a lot more risk. I think we would have
Uh-huh.
still been okay, but the way that we did it was a very healthy way for us and our families, emotionally anyway.
Yeah. How far into those 6 years were you starting to plant the seed of like, hey, let's go. Let's do this. Let's take this leap.
Me, that like leap of faith,
You're like
I
3 months in.
not 3 months. When I started seeing that what our company was making annually, when it started getting up to the point, because it's just Tofik and I, and we are
Uh-huh.
very similar with our just thankfully he's a super financially responsible person. I am as well, and which also makes for a really good business partner, by the way. But it was easy to see because since we were so similar, I could just multiply everything by two or divide everything by two, depending on what you're looking at. And so as I'm looking at these numbers coming in, and it's like, and then the projections, I was like, dude, I think we could do this. Like, I can live on top ramen. I'm perfectly fine doing that. What I was asking him at the time, now that I think about it in this moment, actually, is like, yeah, it might not have been fair for me to like push that on him because again, he had
Uh-huh.
a new young kid. There's a lot at risk. So like asking you to eat top ramen, not that that's exactly what it was, but metaphorically speaking, like probably not okay. And so I understand why he was hesitant. I still think we'd have been fine. So I was saying that I think within maybe 3 years, maybe
Uh-huh.
3 years in, I was probably like, dude, let's get out of here, man. Like, let's go. And he was like, no. And then I think it was maybe another couple years, income kept, kept going up. And then it was we spent a lot of time researching, um, getting
What the
everything
best way to
structured.
do it. Yeah.
And that itself took probably a year just to get
Oh my
everything
gosh, yeah.
situated. And it's funny because I have three kids, two boys and a girl. And when my wife was pregnant with my daughter, I was already a hospital supervisor at this time. I had already been asking for a part-time role for at least a year. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll talk about it, we'll think about it." So when my wife was going to go out on leave and our daughter was going to be born, I told them, I am taking all of my bonding time up front. I'm not going to split it up. Previously, I'd like split it up and
Hmm.
or held it to the end. I was like, I just want you guys to know I'm taking 12 weeks front to back. When I come back, I need a part-time job. And Taofiki, similarly, he was in informatics at this point, working full time, said our kids are like 2 weeks apart. So we're doing this like at the same time.
At the
And
same
so
time.
he said now the difference was his job was willing to give him a part-time job, but Tofiki is he knows himself and he understands he's going to go at something 100%. Part-time, full-time doesn't matter. If you give him a job, he's going to do it 100%. And so he didn't want a part-time, he just wanted essentially not to be there.
Hmm.
So what we did is him and I strategized during that time, during that 12 weeks. Obviously, we gave our families the time that it needed. But in that, mixed in there was like, let's pretend we're full time. Like, let's just see how it goes. We had already kind of built out what we need to step away. We were already setting up payroll and doing these things. Healthcare, dental, vision, all that stuff was getting set up. So then we come, and I mean, it was kind of cool to see us in action where it's like waking up at
Hmm.
your normal hours and getting on the computer and like answering emails and setting up meetings. And it was like, what? We are blowing the lid off this thing. And so, yeah, so I go back into work. There's not a part-time position. And so my very first day back, I was like, here's my 2 weeks. And actually, that's not exactly accurate. 2 weeks before I came back, they put out the next schedule and it had me full time, whatever. And I was like, all right, so there's no position. They're like, no, sorry, there's no position. So 2 weeks before I even came back, I said, just so you're aware, as soon as I return, I'll be putting in my 2 weeks. That'll give you guys 4 weeks to fill the position, so you know. But yeah, I was a little like, okay, but it worked out. We
Hmm.
were gonna try to straddle the fence a little bit longer,
Hmm.
but yeah, so that's kind of how it all happened. We both had babies and took that
You had like a
time and then
trial period. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
That's
Uh
really,
it,
really cool.
it was cool. Yeah, it was cool because we really saw how your efforts, that's what's different about all of this too. It's everyone ticks, everyone ticks differently, but when you put in work, you literally put in 10 hours. I don't care for me. This is for me. I don't care if I woke up at 4 a.m. and I worked till 3 p.m. When I step away from that here, I feel like I see an instant return on that. To me, to my family, to Tofiki, to his family, it's an instant return on that. You go work for someone else for 12 hours straight, you get in your car and you just go home. And that's it. So that is insanely mind blowing to me, especially when it happens. It's the small times that happens, and then it's the big times when you land a contract and you're like, wait a second, you do the math, you're like, that's going to increase my annual salary by how much? And that was because of work I put in because I went there and spent a week at that hospital and they said yes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you've just increased your annual income. Like, I- where else can you do that? Yeah. So that's where I get uh, enjoyment out of that part of it is just you instantly get a return on what you put in.
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, like we said before, not everyone's brain is wired to think that way. Not everyone can like keep himself organized. And sometimes like you just need to work for someone else. But the people who get lit up by the idea of being able to have exponential returns on your effort and even more so for you, like have something to work on that you believe in, it's really, really magical. So when was that transition to full time? How long ago was that?
That was July of 2024. Or was it, geez, am I 2023? Wow, time goes. 2023. Yeah, because I think this was 2 years this past summer.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah. And it was cool. Like I got off work and so weird. My last shift was the worst shift I've ever had in my entire hospital career ever. Like
Wow.
I was thinking last shift, like it's gonna be chill. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say goodbye to everyone, and it's gonna be like it was the worst shift I've ever had ever in my entire career. I mean, I was crying in like I was just bawling, not because it was my last shift, because it was such a horrible shift.
Yeah.
So many things happened in one shift, and it was not like as a hospital supervisor, you can't, there's no taking it easy. Like it's, if something happens, you have to deal with it. And it was just
Yep.
one thing after another, 12 hours, awful. And it was funny. I just, I text my wife, I'm finally leaving the hospital because I'm leaving late, as it, sometimes that happens. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I just told her, horrible shift. I'll see you when I get home. All I could think about is like, I just want to be, it's going to be so nice to just come home and just see my kids and see my wife after this horrible shift and just know that like that part of me is just, that chapter is closed. And so
Yep.
that's all I wanted. Drove home, didn't turn the radio on, nothing. Rolled down my window and I just drove home. And then I get home, I open the door, and then I hear, surprise! And my kids are holding this huge banner. I will say, like, I think you might be thinking, like, oh, that's, oh my gosh, you're stressed out. That's terrible. It was exactly what I needed. It was the most
Oh,
amazing moment. My kids are holding this huge banner and they painted on it, like, congratulations, daddy. My whole family was there. All my friends were there. Everyone was there, all just to celebrate the fact that I got to create it. Taofiki and I created something that is allowing me to be with my family, to be with my kids. It was this huge moment, and I didn't want to go home and sulk in my tears, and I didn't want to think about
yeah.
that anymore. Like it's done, it's over. And the fact that I walk in and all my best friends are there, my dad is there, like it's just crazy. Like people that are there that I didn't think would bother to show up on a, I forget what day of the week it was, but like crazy. And then it was just like an amazing moment again for me to understand like all this work you've been putting in, this 6 years of hard work.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just out here doing it. Like people are noticing it, people are appreciating it, people are congratulating it, which is hard because you don't get that in that 6 years. No one, they just hear like, oh, you're starting a company. Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's nice. But they don't think you're gonna leave your,
Security.
yeah, I don't think you're gonna leave your hospital supervisor job in
Right.
the San Francisco Bay Area where everyone knows nurses make a good amount of money. That's like, what do you mean? You're not gonna leave that. And it's like, so they don't see it happening, and then they just next thing you know, it's like you fast forward and you're 6 years in, and people are like, wait, we're gonna celebrate what? He's quitting his job? Okay. And I think that's when it starts to click for people. They're like, oh dang, you weren't just messing around.
Yeah.
So
Not just self
wonderful
love.
moment. Yeah, wonderful moment, and that was it. That's how I left the hospital, and it was it was a very one of the best days of my life, and worst.
Worst turned best.
Yes.
Amazing. I think something that's like underrated in healthcare, which probably most of the listeners can relate to because, this is who I'm trying to reach, but there's nothing like sometimes coming home or like coming off a shift and like number one being like, wow, I feel so limited and like who can relate to what chaos I just endured. Number one. And like number two, like I don't feel appreciated at all. And those moments are so isolating sometimes. And like, I've certainly had my fair share of like really sucky shifts. And coming off them sometimes, like you said, like the only thing to do is just like sulk in it and like go to bed and get some extra rest the next day to recoup your brain, to recoup your body, to like get some of the empathy back that you've seen withered away in the 12 hours that you had. And it's really, really hard. But that like joyous moment probably felt so relieving and like you said like exactly what was needed in that moment that you never would have been able to give yourself, but the fact that all the people in your life who love you and support you gave that to you is like so so special.
Yeah, it was something very special that I guess really only my wife could have known that I would have appreciated that much on
Yeah.
my last day.
Yeah.
So, and the horrible shift that, leading up to it didn't matter. It, like honestly, it just didn't matter. It was like, okay, I could have had an easy shift and come home to that, and I would have been like, it got me to a level that it would have gotten me to either way. So, and I think what did make it more special is just like it kind of felt like closure in a super weird way. Like this horrible shift challenged me the most I've ever been challenged in that role. And I started in COVID, by the way, like February of 2020 is when I started that role. So it was like a lot of crazy stuff. But this
Oh yeah.
particular night, so you do all that, and it's almost like it allowed me, when I look back, I'm like, I never have to wonder if I can still do that, or like if I ever did it well. I think that's a odd thing. Like even 3 years into that role, there were plenty of days where I'm like, am I good at this? Am I doing this the right
Mm.
way? Like, can I handle this? That just solidified, like, hey, all right, you want to step out? Here you go. Deal with this one last time. So it was like putting a lid on a pot. And I was like, cool, done. Come home, my family. So that's what really made it more special. Is like, that book or that chapter is legit closed now. And it went out, we
Yeah.
went out on bang, and now we can move on.
I think when I don't know like how spiritual you are, how religious you are, like whatever you believe in, I think no matter what you believe in, there is a level of resistance that you invite into your life, like when you tell the universe that you are ready to make a shift. And as soon as you do, it's like, all right, bet, let's go. Can you handle this? Are you ready? Are you really ready? Are you sure? Like you
Right.
said that you wanted this, so do you really? And I have seen that many times over big shifts that I've made, so it doesn't surprise me at all. So you're 2 years in, 2+ years in now to your self-employed journey. How's it been?
It's been more fulfilling than I thought. It's been stressful, don't get me wrong, it's crazy, but it's again, it's that whole you wake up, you put in the work, you see the efforts. And
Yep.
it's and then on top of that, now there's a weird like peace of mind of knowing that any birthday, any holiday, any little league game, any whatever, there's a peace of mind knowing I can make it. I don't have to ask anybody. I have to ask Tofiki, but whatever.
He
I'm
gets
like,
it.
hey, I got this thing going on. Like, can we just not
Yeah.
schedule any meetings that day? And he's like, yeah, for sure. There's so much joy in that. It's not about money. It's not about any of that stuff. To me, it's like the freedom of just like, holy smokes. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to ask anyone anything. That is by far, in my opinion, the number one thing. I take my kids to school every morning. We do a walk, like we park far away and then walk to school on this trail. I do jujitsu with them. I'm the coach of their baseball team. Well, my younger one, I'm their coach because my older son, he's too good now. He's like in a division I want nothing to do with. Um, but like it's just things like that. Open house is what day? Okay, I'll be there. A
Mhm.
parent teacher conference, I will be there. No matter what it is. Like that's what I would say is the number one thing in the last 2 years that I am grateful for. That's it. And so grateful that I cannot imagine not having that. Like that
Mm.
is it's a game changer. You're just like, ooh, I don't know if I could ever work for anyone else again just based off that alone. I'll take a huge
Mhm.
salary cut. I don't care.
Mm,
So that's a game changer. Being able to do with your time what you want to do.
for sure. So, okay, so obviously this is something that even though many of us have never really experienced it, hearing you talk about it, like anyone would be crazy to say, I don't want that, in my humble opinion. So, one way to get there, obviously, is do what you and Tofiki have done to be like strap into the innovator seat, to iterate on a problem that you see happening. If someone is clocking into their shift today and they see a problem and they think, like, why hasn't someone fixed this? Or like, I might have an idea for this. Or like this is going to drive me crazy if this doesn't get fixed and if it doesn't change. What should they do today and tomorrow? Like, what do you feel like is truly the first step?
All right. So I don't know how you feel about luck or just in general. A lot of people have different feelings about luck. Um, so just bear with me for a second. My 5-year-old, he we can all be going on a walk. Doesn't matter where we're going down the street. We could be in the city somewhere. It doesn't matter. My 5-year-old, he will find a $1 bill. He'll find a $100 bill. He'll find a bolt, he'll find a piece of like glass that looks like a gem. He'll find, doesn't matter, right? He's like, dude, like, where are you getting all this stuff? Like, how are you finding this stuff, right? So he'll find quarters, all of it, right? And so at first you could say he's just more lucky. Like we're all walking down the same path, right? We're all walking down the same path. How is my son, how's my middle son, how is he the most lucky? And the difference is we're all going down the same path, okay? But the difference between him and the rest of us is he's looking down. He's looking for things. He is actively trying to find things. We're all walking down the same path. A $100 bill sitting there, I'm just as lucky as you are if we walk past it. But if I'm looking down, searching for opportunities, searching for little things that he can put in his little collection box, is what we call it, he's going to find it. It's not that he was more lucky or less lucky than you. He's put himself in a position to be searching for it, right? And that's how I feel with a lot of this stuff. Like someone could say, "Oh, you're so lucky. You thought about that idea." Okay, I've been searching for opportunities since I can remember, since I was in third grade selling candy at school. I've been
Hmm.
searching for those opportunities. Okay. Taofiki, similarly, he tries to fix everything. He wants to fix every problem that he comes across so he doesn't have to deal with it anymore. That was his form of searching for problems. And it's not like this was the only thing he had ever tried to fix. So what do you get when you continue this process and just making it who you are about putting your head down and searching? And this can be different for everyone. It could be, whether you want to be a business owner or not, just how do you view the world as far as opportunity goes? And
Hmm.
how do you position yourself to be able to be lucky, right? And so that's my thing is like, yes, we're all out there. There's nurses out there. There's not a quick fix to any of this. There's not like a one answer. It's like you might find a problem in your hospital and say, this problem is terrible. We should fix it. Okay. But you got to understand, like the odds of fixing that in the world of like building a business around it, the odds are so low. So you can't think I'm just gonna solve one problem and be done. And now I'm like, oh look, like Joey and Tofiki, I made my own product. Like it's a long game. It doesn't just happen, and you don't know when it's gonna happen. My son
Yep.
he's always looking. He doesn't know if he's gonna come across a quarter or $100 bill, but he's put himself in a position to be able to get either one when that opportunity presents itself. So that's my thing is you don't know if you're going to be picking up pennies all day long by trying to solve all these problems. And yes, it takes effort to put yourself in these positions to actually try to solve and iterate. And this is broken. This is broken. Let me spend 3 months on this problem. It's an investment. It has to become a way of life. So sorry, that's not really answering the question outside of it's like, don't expect to just find one problem and think you're going to
Yeah.
solve it, let alone make a living at it. Like, it's just make it a way of life of being okay with identifying problems, exploring solutions. You do that enough times, an idea is going to come across. It's like, huh, this, not only do I have all this experience from keeping myself in that mindset and exploring a bunch of different things, but like this has the lowest entry to barrier that I've seen so far. It's going to cost the least. It's going to take less of my time. Its viability factor might be the highest you've seen. So that's when you strike. That's when
Sure.
not even you strike. You just keep doing the same thing, but it strikes you. It's like, hey, this is it. And you're like, cool, got it. But it's not a one time. You can't just like decide one day, "Oh, I'm just gonna start a company and make a product and it's gonna be better," and then turn it off, turn that switch off when you go to bed at night. It's like you get turn all the lights on, and you just now we gotta wait. And it might strike someone sooner or later, but you gotta be okay with that or never. So that's where I live.
I love that. I mean, that's more of a mindset shift than anything, right? It's not like you're expecting this thing to happen. It's like you're open to the possibility of something happening and
Yep,
increasing the surface area for something quote unquote lucky to happen to you.
yep. And your expectations should track with like how you do that. You're like if you yeah, of course if you are still working 40 hours a week but you're open minded, that's cool, that's good, that's a good start. But like again, what is the likelihood of something like actually latching on and growing if you're working 40 hours a week? So curb your expectations to be in a healthy space. Now, if you're like, this is all I do is search for products, I analyze products, okay, you should expect that you're going to see something sooner than later.
Right.
So it's also comes with, it is 100% a mind shift. It is a mind change. And for anyone that wants to just dabble in this, like I don't think it works that way. It doesn't work that way for me. It didn't work that way for Tofiki and I. Like this was, you really got to be in it. It's a mind shift. And then what are your expectations? Because if you think you're just gonna go gangbusters with your very first product, and so you want to dump all your money and time into it, like you might, maybe you lowered your expectations because you might have set yourself up for
Yeah.
failure, and then you're not going to want to redo it again. So keeping a fine balance of that is what I think where a lot of the success that you see comes from. None of this is overnight, almost none of it. Doesn't matter who was on your podcast last, who will be on it, in 3 months. Almost none of it is just like, oh yeah, I woke up one day and then like boom, and then the next day it was boom. Like, it's 10 years in. Tovik and I are 10 years in, essentially, almost. Like, I think we're 9 years into this, and people just now are like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, oh wow, good for you. You did it. And it's like, okay. So mind shift, or did you say mind shift or mind? Yeah,
Mindset
mindset.
shift.
Mindset. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. That's something that I have identified as well, right? Of like you don't just wake up one day and things have fallen into place. It's funny you mentioned the timeline. I did a hackathon in the spring and we talked about this like really cool hardware solution to a problem that I have every day that just feels like low-hanging fruit. And I came back from that and it wasn't even the product that like we built at the hackathon. It just stuck in my brain. And I keep thinking about it, and I'm like, am I willing, am I ready to dedicate the next like 5+ years of my life to this thing right now? If I were to pursue it, and like I concluded that I wasn't. I'm like, okay, move on because for whatever reason. But yeah, the reality of understanding and really digesting that it does not happen overnight and that there are many stages and that there's a fine line to walk between overdoing it and underdoing it as well. And that's part of, I think, when the cool thing about having people like you onto this show is a lot of where I sit and people, in similar positions to me sit where we're working full time clinically. We're exploring these different avenues to go down. We're having a conversation with you who you're, let's call it 10 years ahead of me, right? In your kind of journey out of, so to speak, healthcare. It's really easy to get caught up in the like imposter syndrome of like, oh, he's already there without hearing any of the backstory. You have like no insight into that one random person that you met that day, into that one patient that said that one specific thing to you that like sparked this idea in you. That one mentor that you had just because they just so happened to be walking down your hallway. Like there's no visibility into the ins and outs of the stories that really make a journey. And sometimes when you're on your own journey, it can be really discouraging to feel like, man, like I'm not getting anywhere. Like I'm not getting any traction. It's taking me so long, to really feel like the effort that I'm putting in is having an equal and opposite output. And I think hearing the more so like building the foundations, taking it slow, like while still going 100% effort in both endeavors is a refreshing thing to hear from someone who has been as successful as you. And it's a great reminder that like good things take time. They take a long time. And you're not just gonna like wake up the next morning and be like, oh, I'm quitting my job. Like it's happening, you know,
It's possible. Of course, it's possible, but it's unlikely. And
for
what I
sure.
like about what you're doing here, anyways, is you're having these conversations with folks from all different ranges, everyone within the range of medical experience, entrepreneurial experience, And so because the other part too is like, if you can imagine having, say, Jeff Bezos sitting here on this podcast. Okay, just for example, replace me with Jeff Bezos for a second. And I only use him because Amazon's worth whatever. And so I'm assuming people call him a good business person. I don't actually know a lot about Bezos as a business person, but let's just assume he's a really good business person and we all know he's successful and right. So, but he's so further into his career that what happens is, this is an assumption. I don't know if this is reality, but my assumption is that when you take these people that are 20, 30 years into business or into whatever success, whoever you're in, it can be the lead pianist for whatever, but when you take them when they're so far into their careers, as humans, it's harder to go back to the beginning of our career where maybe one of your listeners are at. I don't have an idea. Where do I start? It's harder for us to tell a story or to like say, oh yeah, it was like this, because it's further away. This is why parents can't relate to their teenagers. It's like, you were a teenager, but yeah, but I don't remember, like we're so far removed from that time that it's hard for us to truly understand, right? And so my point is that you it's really important, and this is what you're doing, it's really important to bring on people and perspectives at different stages of it all. Because you might have Caleb who's like, yeah, he's right in the middle of a particular part of his journey that resonates with someone that hasn't been doing this, or differently than me, who's been doing this for 10 years. He's like, "Oh, I'm 2 years in," or whatever it is. He's saying it like this happened yesterday. And I'm saying it like, oh yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember it being like this. It's like, whereas he can lay out like, no, look, let me tell you, this happened
Yep.
yesterday. So he gets to paint a much more detailed picture of that particular stage of where he's at versus me. I can tell you right now about managing this company and logistics and tariffs and supply chain and that, because that's at the forefront right now. It's
Uh-huh.
not about like, oh, how'd you get your first customer, or like how'd those conversations go? I can recall and I can try to tell the story the best I can. It's not like someone who's in it. And so that's my thing, is it's always important for us to listen to people at different stages of this process. And yes, take what, if I've been doing this for 10 years, take what I referenced 6 years ago. It's cool, but understand I'm further away from that. So if you have someone who's 6 years prior, or yourself who's 10 years prior, right, you can speak to these problems with so much more real life energy, and experience that I'm recalling. I'm using my memory, and we all know how that goes. And my memory is terrible. So just, I think people need to understand, like, take what you can get from it, and that's the value of what you're doing, is like bringing on people at different stages, because there's no value in always interviewing the Bezoses of the world. I had a guy tell me once, he had a podcast, uh, and I met him, I think 2019. I met him before Taofik and I really did any of this. And he said, I met him at a nursing conference. And maybe I was being a little too whatever, but I was like, Taofik and I would love to share our story. Like, again, up to what we knew at that point. It's like, oh, we'd love to share our story about like our product and how we got our first customers and stuff. Now, mind you, this is like only being 2 years in. And he straight up told me, he's like, oh yeah, 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 that's cool. But right now we're only interviewing people that are doing big things. I was like, huh, okay. And that I
Ooh,
never forgot that. And it's not that I was
I
like,
wouldn't either.
it's like, yes, I was personally like, oh, okay, that's okay. But as that stuck with me, I now truly understand the value of, because if not even this person, if anyone would have interviewed us at that time, there's a lot they could have learned from where we were at that time. Sure, there's a lot you can learn from me today too, but at that moment, I mean, in the trenches, I could have told you about
Yeah.
this and this and this. I could have told you about. So I just think it's important for us not to undervalue even people that are saying, I have this idea of starting a company. Cool. What are you dealing with right now? Like, what
Yep.
are your, how are you researching this? Like, it's like, yeah. So, but you're doing that, and it's just a funny story because now it's like, huh, okay, cool. But there's no value in
Would
only
you say that you're
interviewing.
doing big things now?
I don't, depends on how you measure whatever, but it's like, again, like there's no value in only interviewing people that are doing big things. There may be a value guess from like a inspirational standpoint, but if people want to really learn stuff and like dig into something, most people that are really doing big things are 10 plus years beyond where you are. So I guess it depends on what your goal is, but I don't see value in only interviewing the Bezoses of the world. I'm sure there's a ton of value there, but it doesn't translate as well to also hearing about people doing things, not big things, doing little things, doing the day-to-day struggles. Because that's, if you're trying to get into this, that's what you need to hear. I
Yep.
don't care that you have a, $100 billion company and how you manage that like that. That doesn't matter to me. And if you want to tell the story about when you first started, like that's cool too, but that was 30 years ago. So how good is that recollection and how good is that? Now it's just a story. It's like a fairy tale almost. I want the
Yep.
truth. I want the daily
Totally.
times of like, what are we going through right now?
Yeah. Well, the further away you get removed from those times, the more and more, like you said, kind of warped your memory becomes, and the less relatable it becomes, right? So
Correct.
it's easy to say, wow, like I said, like, wow, you got to this place. You guys are so successful. You guys are awesome. Like, you're killing it. You quit your job. Oh my God, I want to be just like Joey and Taofiki. But like, the 10 years is a big time.
Hey,
That's a long time, you know, to travel that path. And thank you for the like kind of recognition that that's part of what I love about having the conversations with people, number one, of all clinical disciplines and specialties, but number two, who were all kind of doing totally different things. Someone asked me the other day, has your ideal guest changed over time of like the conversations that you had? And
yeah.
I'm like,
Hmm.
no. If anything, like it's gotten more broad. Like I don't want to
Yeah. Yeah.
narrow
Yeah.
in on any one specific, discipline or specialty or like type of person that type of role that this person's traveling along. Like I am the person who like I don't know if it's just my personality. Like I want to try every ice cream flavor in the shop, but like I think that there's just so much value in being informed from a wide view of sources. So,
I
yeah,
agree.
it's been a ton of fun. Ton of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're really pushing our time limit here, and I appreciate all of the great conversation, all the knowledge, all the stories that you shared. You took me personally on an emotional roller coaster here. My hands literally went up in the air when you were telling one of those stories. So, for anyone watching, I hope you enjoyed the animation. If the listeners want to hear about what you guys are up to, want to get in touch with you, how can they do it, and where can they learn also more about the Safe Seizure product?
Yeah. To me, LinkedIn, although I haven't been as doing as well on LinkedIn, I've been kind of distancing. But LinkedIn is a great place to initiate a conversation. Just don't sound super spammy in your original message because you know how it goes, like, oh, grow your business X in a month, or have you thought about softwares that can? It's a very quick way to have me kind of delete the message. But no, just be genuine. Send me a message. I'll try my best to get to and answer it, and then beyond there, like I try to stay open for as many people as I can. So that for sure. And then as far as the product goes, I would just say go to safeseizure.com, and it's kind of tells the story about it. And Tofik and I, we touch on it, and you can see it. So it's like there's a little video there, and you can kind of see it on a bed. Yeah, and then just that's what I would say. I know this sounds super weird. Like, I'm not plugging the product. I don't need anyone to go there and buy the product. Like, that's just genuinely if you're interested in like what it is. But zero expectations from anyone as far as like adopting it or telling anyone or sharing it. We don't care. It's not. But if you're interested, cool. It's super simple. And you can see it right there, safeseizure.com. Yeah.
I think it's really cool just to see the finished product and, now having heard the whole story to see what it really looks like and like how it is in action and how you described it, what your brains came together to iterate on and develop and really produce as the final product. I think it's super cool. So, if for nothing else but for education for anyone who's interested in that journey.
Yeah, and I'll leave with this is that you'll see how simple it is. I mean, it's super simple. And even a product that's as simple as that with the lowest FDA kind of stuff, it's it's a whole animal, like the company side and everything else, logistics and all that. So I don't, kudos to people that can run companies with like 1,000 products and 500 employees. And so it's very complicated, even when it looks simple. Not to scare anyone again, but just understand, like this is not easy. It's not, again, it's not a switch you just pop on and like, cool, I got my own product, I sell it now. It's like,
Yeah.
and that's what the most simple product essentially that you can have, which is what ours is. Anyways, I'm just trying to sort of give us, yeah, a
I
little.
think anti-selling is the best thing to do because like you have to really be committed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, or you just don't care. That works. Again, that'll get you in favor. That'll work in your favor sometimes and work against you other times. And I've been on both sides of that. But I'm typically a person. I'm like, "Oh, whatever. I don't care. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. I don't care."
For
So,
sure.
but yeah, no, I appreciate. This has been awesome. You asked some really good questions, so I appreciate you. You know, having me need to go a little bit deeper than maybe what I've typically done. A lot of these
Sweet.
questions that we get asked are very surface level, and I can say them in my sleep because I've said them a lot in telling our stories. But you ask some questions like, huh, that went a little deeper than I had expected. And so I appreciate that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you for being receptive to them and open to them and answering them very genuinely. Um, all right, fantastic. Well, Joey, thanks again for all your time and your knowledge and all the hard work and reps that you have put into this. Maybe Taofiki can be a guest in the future. We can push him a little far as well. Sounds like a fun time to me. Listeners, if you want to get in touch with me, I will put my LinkedIn and Instagram in the show notes as well as Joey's. And if you are a clinician who identifies with anything that we were talking about today and you're on your own journey, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you and kind of let you be a spokesperson for your own journey. I love talking to people whose brains are just not normal and who think differently and like maybe believe in their own delusions to the point where they create a completely new and different life for themselves. So it really gives me energy. I think it gives a lot of people energy, and I'm happy to have the conversation. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Corporate Espionage. I'm your host, Kayla, and we will see you next week.